Okay, so let's continue with our test review. Part 2, test review for ratios, rates, percents, decimals, fractions, and proportions. Make sure you have a piece of paper and a pencil, that way you can take notes or do examples and follow along. Here we go. Our I can statements again. For I can solve ratio problems, I can find the rate of a given situation, I can find the percent of a whole, I can convert a fraction to a decimal percent, I can convert a decimal to a fraction or a percent, I can convert a percent to a decimal or a fraction, I can represent ratios through the use of type diagrams, I can represent ratios through the use of a ratio table, I can represent ratios through the use of a double number line, I can create an equation when given a ratio. Now do remember that these I can statements did go with the previous video as well. Alright, so here we go. Picking up where we left off, let's do example 10. Elena has a doll collection. 3 of her dolls, representing 15% of her collection, have red hair. How many dolls are in Elena's total collection? Pause until you have completed. Alright, so look at this. Like we was talking about today in class, we look at our part to whole equals our percent over 100. We're going to go back in our problem, we're going to pick out the things that we know, and then find what we're actually going to be looking for. So, it tells me that 3 of her dolls, and this is 3 dolls out of the total collection, so I have a 3 over something. And I say something because the total collection is what we're wanting to know. How many is in that total collection? And then I know it says that 3 of her dolls, that represents 15%. So it represents 15 out of the 100%. Now, with this problem, I can solve it 2 ways. I could do it like we was doing in class today, where I was actually doing a cross multiplication. So I'd have 3 times 100 to get 300. And then 15 times x to get my 15x. And then solve for my variable, so I would divide both sides by 15 because division is the opposite of multiplication. And this would come out to being 300 divided by 15 to equal 20. So x equals 20. My 15s actually cancel out here. So, in her total collection, she has 20 dolls. Now, another way I could have solved this one, even setting up the problem just like it was, having my 3 over the unknown, what I'm going to know, my total collection, to my 15 over 100. In this case, I could use the equivalent ratio, and I could have seen that I could divide 15 by 5 to get the 3. So if I take 15 divided by 5, I get 3. And if I divide 15 by 5, I would also have to divide 100 by 5. So 100 divided by 5 actually gives me 20. So the total number in her collection is 20. Alright, example 11. What percent of the model below is shaded pink? What percent of the model below is shaded black? Pause video until you have completed on your own. Alright, so let's look at this. Let's look at how much of it is shaded pink and how much is shaded black. First thing, I can look at how many actual blocks I have. And I see I have 5 in this first column. And I have 10 for each row. So altogether I have a 5 by 10, which is 50 blocks inside. So now I can look at how many pink I have, and I have a total of 15 pink out of the 50. I can write this as a fraction. 15 out of 50. Now, in order to have a percent, I know that it's going to be over 100. So I can use equivalent ratios here to help me to get on up to that 100. So now I can just look at 50 times what gets me to 100. 50 times 2. If I multiply 50 by 2 to get to 100, I have to do the same thing up here on top. So 15 times 2 gives me 30. So now that I have it over 100, I can actually just go ahead and write. Because my fraction step over 100, I can write I have 30% that is pink. Well, if 30% of this model is pink, then obviously I would have 70% that is black. Because 70 and 30 makes 100%, and that's how many blocks I would have altogether. Alright, so be ready for your test tomorrow. Have a good evening.